And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest." Every year I have high expectations about how this Christmas will be different. I dream great dreams in September about how I will make this Christmas extraordinarily meaningful for me, my family, and the church of which I am a part. And every year, I promise myself that I will live more fully into the spiritual reality of the Advent season of preparation. And this year, I will be still, deepen my prayer life, and practice patience. Most of us have similar expectations, conscious or otherwise, of how our Christmas will be. Those expectations arise out of some idealized view of what Christmas should be. And if I work hard enough, if I'm creative enough, if I pray enough, it will all work out just as I intended. Christmas will be Christmas just as I had planned. Now, several years ago, while living in Oxford, we bought a new car. And acting on the advice of the man who had sold us the car, I decided against using the old car as a down payment and rather put an ad in the local newspaper announcing its availability at a very reasonable price. At one inquiry, a young Iranian graduate student, I carefully described the car, being sure to suggest there may be the beginnings of some transmission problems. The young man took a test drive, brought his friend, a mechanic, to test it out, and we settled on a price. The sale was completed, and he drove off happy. Now, that was a week before Christmas. Now, it was early in my tenure as rector of St. Peter's Church. It was before I had learned the absolutely terrible idea to have a Sunday school Christmas pageant with dozens of angels and shepherds and supporting casts of thousands on Christmas Eve. So, 10 minutes before the pageant, 2 of the wise men got very sick and had to go home, and 5 minutes before the opening hymn of the pageant, I had to separate several shepherds who were engaged in a major fistfight. And just as the last punch was being thrown, a not so proud and not so happy owner of my old car barged into my office demanding a refund. The car's transmission had serious trouble, he yelled. And the calmer I tried to be, the louder and more abusive he became. "I can't talk now," I tried to explain. "Let me finish this pageant and we can talk afterwards." So we began the pageant a few minutes late, and my student friend stood in the rear of the church holding the bill of sale and making what appeared to me to be threatening gestures. From time to time, it seemed as if he would be coming down the aisle with the shepherds or the wise men or the children from foreign lands bringing gifts to the Christ child, but he stayed in the back. And we had to talk, as I had promised, and after the pageant, I led him back into the office that he had come crashing into an hour earlier. And all the while, my family waited dinner for me in that little window of time that I had after the Christmas pageant and before the next Christmas Eve worship service. It was hardly the Christmas Eve I had planned. "I need a car, and this car won't run," he demanded in very broken English. I was defensive, of course, but secure in my legal rights. I had told him about the transmission. He had signed a paper to that effect. He was trying to take advantage of me. "It's Christmas," he continued, and I wondered if he really knew what Christmas was. But then his tone changed. "My father, he is in Atlanta. My children have never seen him. We were going to drive today before Christmas. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Then he held his hand in his hands, head in his hands, and he began to weep uncontrollably. It was certainly not what I had planned, certainly not what I had expected. And the words of our closing hymn at the Christmas pageant began to work their way into my consciousness. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. We hardly ever get it right. All of our deepest hopes, so often mingled with our greatest fears, are just too much for us. Our best efforts fall short. Our most beautiful dreams never quite come to fruition. And our darkest fears motivate us far more than we would dare to admit. But in the chaos of that Christmas Eve, there was a remembrance that a child had been born into this terribly imperfect and often tragic world, and that birth gives witness to God's presence. Emmanuel, we call him, God with us. In the miracle of Christmas, God had done for us what we could never do for ourselves. Life, all of life, had been made holy. All relationships, even one between a controlling, perfectionist young priest and a scared Muslim Iranian exile, became the means of grace and hope. I paid for the repair. He left 2 days later. Was his story true? I'll never know. But I do know on that night, despite all the chaos, I heard angels sing. God bless you.